Good evening guys, F4H Rosso here with part 2 of our series on the circuit experience challenges at the Nurburgring Nordschleife. Yesterday in part 1 we had a look at sectors 1, 2 and 3, and today we're going to be tackling sectors 4, 5 and 6. A little bit different today. Yesterday's video, if you've not seen it already, had an in-car camera for the first replay. Today we're going to be changing that to a bumper cam with telemetry. Had a great suggestion and some great feedback on my video yesterday from Reddit. So hopefully that one will be a bit better. You know, you can see the telemetry, throttle inputs and steering inputs and things like that. Again today we're going to be using traction control sector 2 and the brake balance 2 clicks rearwards. So let's get cracking. So we start today's breakdown with the extremely tricky sector 4, quite a fast but technical section of the circuit with some blind corners and even a triple apex right-hander to contend with. We're basically accelerating down to the first double left-hander. Try and take the shortest route possible. You can see here I'm basically making it as straight as I possibly can. All the way up into 5th gear and positioning the car on the right-hand side for the best line through the first of the 2 left-handers. Keep the car in 5th gear here, so you can see the telemetry just there. Keep the car in 5th gear. We're basically just about to dab on the brakes at the cone just ahead of us. Accelerate basically on the apex. It's a theme that you'll see in the whole of this first sector, where basically because the car's got so much grip, this M6 does have a lot of grip. As soon as we're on the apex, we're able to get straight back onto the power. One thing I forgot to mention is today we do have the cones on. It's another suggestion that I got from you guys. So I've popped those on today. If you are going to use them though, be very careful on this track. As I said yesterday, they can be a bit of a pain because they're on line, a lot of them. So just be careful. As you can see, this one, it's not too far away from the track. 2 wheels onto that grass and you hit that cone and you're straight off into the red and white barriers. So they do make great reference points, but as I say, if you're going to use them, just be careful. So a quick dab on the brakes, and as I say, we hug into that first curb, and as soon as we're on the curb, basically you can see on the telemetry again, I'm straight back on the power at full power already, accelerating towards the next of the 2 left-handers. Again, let the car come out naturally to the right-hand side for the best line through the second left-hander. And we're on the brakes hard at the 2 cones on the left-hand side. Down 2 gears into 3rd. And again, as we apex, hard on the power. Take a chunk of that curb on the right-hand side. And again, let your car drift over to the left for the perfect line through this downhill right-hander. So hard on the brakes again at those 2 cones on the left-hand side. It's tempting here to brake late, but because we're downhill, you want to be braking nice and early. Don't shift down, keep the car held in 3rd, pulls really nicely in third out of here. So there's no, you can use second, but there's no real benefit to taking that extra gear. Again, as I said, just be careful of your braking point on this one because it's downhill. The track is basically trying to drag you out wide. So get your braking done nice and early, get the nose in, and as you'll notice again, a common theme on this, as soon as we're apexed, we're back on the power. Nice chunky curb on the outside there. Use plenty of it, loads of traction out there, and it'll basically make the corner nice and straight, so you can get on the power nice and early. Difficult sector, or section of the sector coming up, a blind left-right. Keep the car in nice and tight for the left-hander and take a chunk of curb on the right-hand side. You can take this flat. Again, as I said, be very careful if you're using the cones. You can see we get really, really, really close. I'll show you. Really, really, really close to this cone on the right-hand side. So just be very, very, very careful if you are using the cones, because if you do hit them, they will launch the car. Over to the left-hand side for the triple apex right-hander. As you can see, we've just stamped on the brakes. Basically, at the end, you can see on the left-hand side of the car, just there, there's like a brick curb. At the end of that, we want to be taking a dab on the brakes again to get the nose in rather than to scrub too much speed off. Coast through the first part, and then on the power hard as you see, the second curb appear. So the curb splits mid-corner. As soon as you're onto the second part of that curb and straight back hard on the power, the car will grip up and it will bring the car nicely around to the left-hand side of the circuit. As you can see just here, we're using all of the track to maximise our speed through that really quick and tricky blind corner. On the brakes hard, on the left-hand side, just here. Basically, we're braking just after those two cones on the left-hand side, or for those of you not using the cones, the track grass changes colour. We're braking about 5 metres after that occurs. It's a tricky braking zone, this one, because you want to be taking a lot of curb on the inside, on the right-hand side just there, you can see. Take a lot of curb through there, but we're kind of braking and ignoring the fact that that right-hander exists and the first part of the left-hander exists. Our aim in this sequence of corners is to position the car for the second apex, as you'll see. So we're on the brakes hard. If you were taking that corner, if it was on its own optimally, you'd be apexing about now. But our aim is to take a late apex to get on the power nicely for the next straight, essentially. So a nice late apex on the power hard, up into third gear, and hold third gear. There's no point shifting up at this point, you'll just lose time. So on the face of it, the second of today's sectors is a lot simpler than the first one, but often with the things that look simple on the surface, they're actually quite complex underneath. One thing that you'll find with simple sectors, even though this is only 3 corners if you don't really count the curves on the back straight, because it's so simple, there's a lot less time to make. So yeah, it can be a difficult sector to master, this one. So we'll start with a run down to the first right-hander, flat out through there. Oh, just almost unpaused it then. Flat out through that first right-hander, and get your car over to the right-hand side to set yourself up for the blind left. As you can see on the left-hand side, we've got a little patch of grass, at the right-hand side, sorry, a little patch of grass and 2 cones. We're braking just at those, or where the barrier turns red, and into 3rd gear for this first left-hander. You can get on the power really early on this one. There's a nice big strip of concrete on the outside that has just as much grip as the racetrack, so don't be afraid to use it. The only thing you'll see on the exit is if you're using the cones, there is a cone planted on the exit, so we avoid that on this run. We still get a nice exit from there. The concrete isn't necessary or a must. You can still get a really nice run just by using the racetrack itself. The aim for this next left-hander, so it's an uphill right-hander. It's really difficult. The car, the track kind of falls away from you, but even though you're going uphill, it's very odd. It tries to drag you out wide to the left-hand side. Very difficult, this corner. You want to be getting over to the left-hand side. You can see here we're already setting up for it. Really tight to the curb. It's really important, this corner, for this sector, because it leads on to the second longest straight. We want to be getting a really nice run out of this corner. The worse we take this, the worse our run is down the straight and the more time we lose. So on the brakes hard, just before the cone on the left-hand side. Again, as with sector 1, as we're apexing, we're back on the power hard. Try not to use this curb on the left-hand side. Unlike a lot of the curbs on the track, there isn't that little bit of concrete on the lip. So if you do straddle 2 wheels over there, you lose all grip and it really compromises your run down the straight. So you can kind of lean on the curb, as you can see we are here, because it's banked, but don't go any further. Relatively simple run down the straight through the flat out left-hander. Just try and be as smooth as possible in this situation. Just basically to make sure that we're scrubbing off as little speed as possible. We're braking pretty much where I've paused the video, so I've just gone a little bit further than I wanted to, but you'll have noticed that there was 2 cones, but also if you're not using cones, there is a blue mark in the road. In fact, I don't know if you can look back in the replay. I don't really want to mess about with it too much because I'll end up recording this all over again. Oh, hang on. Let's see if we can... No, it won't let me do it. But yeah, there's a blue mark in the road. We want to be braking hard just after that. We've got the car over to the left-hand side of the track, but you'll see as I brake, I point the car to the right. The way this corner is cambered, you can see it just there. It cambers in, so the car naturally wants to go around the corner, which really helps. To get the car in, it's a late apex you want, so you're looking for the second of the 2 cones just here. Kiss the curb and hard on the power. It's a relatively simple run down to the end of the sector. The only real thing that you need to know is once you hit 5th gear, keep the car in 5th. Don't waste the time on this, the change up to 6th. Basically, we're looking to be as smooth as possible, just taking the path of least resistance to the line, scrubbing off as little speed as possible. So keep the car nice and tight. We want the shortest route possible. And no sudden movements, nice smooth movements through the corners to scrub off as little speed as possible. So now to the last sector for today. Again, a pretty tricky technical sector, this one, leading us from the back straight up to the carousel. One trick on this one is to hold the car in 5th gear. Don't change up to 6th on this back straight. I've no doubt that we'd probably be in 6th gear if we were doing a full lap of the Nurburgring. But for some reason, because of the run that you get to start off this challenge, it's better to keep the car in 5th and basically hold it just below the red line. Again, as with any run on a straight on the Nurburgring, as we saw in the last sector, you just want to be keeping things as smooth as possible. It's surprising how much time you can lose in a straight line by being too aggressive with your inputs. So be nice and smooth, take nice straight lines through the corners, and just let the car do the work, really. We're getting over to the right-hand side here for this very, very tricky uphill left-hander with a double apex. You'll see we brake pretty much just after we've paused the video. There's a curb on the outside there, but be very careful of how much of the curb you use. You can see just offline there's loads of leaves, it's very dusty, and it does affect your grip. So be very careful how much of that curb you use. So you see, we just brake just there. It's really just a dab of the brakes to get the nose of the car in. I know I've mentioned that a couple of times in this video. I guess what I mean is sometimes when you dab the brakes, it pulls the car. So we're already applying left-hand steering lock at this point. But if you dab the brakes, it will pull the car left. It basically gives you like a moment of oversteer that you can manipulate to take a corner quicker. And that's what I mean by dab of the brakes, to bring the nose in. As soon as we hit the apex, we are back on the power. You can see again from the telemetry, I'm already starting to feed on the power. Just trust the car to grip. It will take you right out to the outside, but it's very, 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 very satisfying when you get that one right. Tricky left-right here. You want to be avoiding that dust and grass on the left-hand side. It can really affect your run through this right-hander. Don't use the curb on the inside of this right-hander. It will unsettle the car, get you up onto 2 wheels, and you will lose grip and run wide. So you see, we just tap the curb. Don't go any further onto it than this. This is basically the optimal line. Let the car run out wide. We're carrying basically 150 miles an hour through that corner. That's when you know you've got it just about perfect. And on the brakes, hard and nice and early for this left-hander. We want to be taking a nice early apex and early turn in for this corner because it opens out hugely on the exit. So you can get on the power so early. If you brake any later, you end up losing time on the exit, so it's not worth it. Down into 2nd gear. And basically, as soon as you've got the car pointed towards the exit, you want to be back on the power. And again, hold the car. It's a common theme in these license tests. Hold the car in gear, so in 2nd gear in this case, for the best run to the line. Again, a shift up at this point would just cost you time rather than save you any. And that one is a world record time, so I'm very proud of that one. So that's it for part 2 of the circuit experience tutorial at the Nürburgring. Part 3 should be up tomorrow. Same format as today, roughly same time as today as well. I should have a bit of time tomorrow to get part 3 up so that we can complete the circuit together and hopefully shave off those extra tenths. Been really nice to see the positive feedback about part 1. I'm really glad you guys have enjoyed it, and I'm really, really, really glad that it's been helping people improve. Really nice to see. If you've got stories of success, if you find the videos are helpful, please let me know, because I absolutely love the helping people improve. If you've not seen part 1, I will pop a link to that at the end of today's video. As always, guys, if you could drop a like, comment, perhaps share the video, or even a subscribe, that would be absolutely fantastic. I know a couple of guys have subscribed off the back of yesterday's video. Welcome on board, guys. It's great to have you with us. Hopefully Fingers crossed we can reach that magical 100 subs mark before Christmas. That'd be a great little Christmas present, that one. As always, guys, thanks ever so much for watching. Have a fantastic evening, and I'll see you tomorrow for part 3.